Venezuela was once a symbol of success in Latin America. Oil money built highways, hospitals, schools, and modern cities. For decades, the country believed that as long as oil flowed, prosperity would last forever. But dependence on one resource quietly weakened everything else. Agriculture declined. Local industries disappeared. Corruption spread through state institutions. When Hugo Chávez came to power in 1999, he promised to use oil wealth to lift everyone out of poverty. Many people admired his mission. He nationalized industries, expanded social programs, and centralized political control. However, beneath the rhetoric, the economy became more fragile. State-run companies struggled, private investment fled, and the government relied increasingly on oil prices staying high. This fragile foundation eventually collided with reality, and that collision shaped the presidency of Nicolás Maduro. When Chávez died in 2013, Maduro inherited both power and responsibility. He lacked Chávez's charisma, but he inherited the same economic structure, one that depended almost entirely on oil revenues. Soon after, global oil prices crashed. Venezuela's main source of income collapsed almost overnight. Instead of reforming or diversifying the economy, the government printed money, raised subsidies, and introduced strict price controls. Businesses could no longer afford to operate. Supermarket shelves emptied. Inflation exploded into hyperinflation. Over time, citizens watched life savings evaporate. Basic goods became scarce. Hospitals ran out of medicine. More than 7 million Venezuelans eventually left the country, creating one of the largest migrations in modern history. This internal collapse set the stage for another conflict, the growing tension between Maduro's government and U.S. policy, especially under President Donald Trump. Maduro inherited a political system built heavily on loyalty rather than performance. Key industries were controlled by the state, and many senior positions were tied to political allegiance. Oil revenue financed almost everything, from imports to social programs. When those revenues disappeared, the entire structure began to fail. Faced with economic disaster, the government chose to maintain spending. More and more currency entered circulation, but production continued to fall. Prices rose faster than wages. Hyperinflation became part of everyday life. To control rising prices, authorities imposed price limits on goods. But when stores were forced to sell products at a loss, many simply stopped selling. Shortages grew deeper. Ordinary families adapted however they could. Rationing food, waiting in long lines, trading on informal markets. Meanwhile, political explanations emphasized foreign plots and economic sabotage. For ordinary Venezuelans, the explanation mattered less than survival. Economic collapse soon transformed into political crisis. Opposition movements accused the government of authoritarianism, corruption, and economic mismanagement. Large protests swept through major cities. Some demonstrations ended peacefully, others in confrontation and arrests. Inside institutions, authority blurred. Courts were perceived as aligned with the executive branch. The National Assembly, where the opposition gained control in 2015, saw its powers limited and contested. Parallel political bodies emerged, concentrating more authority around the presidency. In 2019, opposition leader Juan Guaidó declared himself interim president, backed by parts of the international community. Maduro rejected the challenge, maintaining control over the military and the state apparatus. Venezuela entered a strange situation. One government in power, another recognized abroad. While leaders battled for legitimacy, millions of citizens continued to leave. families were divided across borders, sending remittances home to help relatives survive. Those who stayed built informal economies, repaired what they could, and learned to live with uncertainty. As this internal struggle intensified, the United States, under President Donald Trump, hardened its stance. U.S. policy shifted toward what officials described as maximum pressure. Washington refused to recognize Maduro as legitimate and expanded sanctions targeting government officials, financial channels, and especially the state oil company PDVSA. The objective was to weaken the regime's financial lifeline and push for political change. The United States supported the opposition diplomatically and coordinated sanctions with allies. At the same time, senior Venezuelan officials were charged in U.S. courts with corruption and narcotics-related crimes. Trump's administration also used strong rhetoric, stating that all options were on the table. Though no invasion occurred, the language heightened tensions and uncertainty. Maduro responded by strengthening alliances with Russia, China, Iran, and Cuba. These partners provided loans, political backing, technical assistance, and, in some cases, security cooperation. The crisis deepened into a broader geopolitical struggle. Sanctions increased pressure on the government, but also weighed heavily on an already broken economy. Critics argued they worsened humanitarian conditions. Supporters argued they targeted corruption and repression. Both realities coexisted. Economic collapse had begun years earlier, and sanctions layered additional strain upon it. Despite international isolation and economic hardship, Maduro retained control, largely through loyal security forces, political networks, and foreign partnerships. Venezuela's crisis soon extended beyond its borders. Regional neighbors struggled to absorb migrants. International organizations deployed humanitarian aid. Global powers positioned themselves according to strategic interests, oil, influence, and ideology. Russia offered loans and support. China invested in infrastructure tied to oil repayment. Cuba contributed intelligence cooperation. Western countries debated how far pressure should go without triggering deeper suffering. Inside Venezuela, daily life transformed. Many transactions shifted into dollars, partially stabilizing certain sectors but widening inequality. Skilled workers departed, and entire industries shrank or disappeared. Over the years, modest stabilization measures emerged, but structural problems remained unresolved. Trust in institutions eroded. Many Venezuelans questioned whether meaningful reform was possible without political change. The crisis reshaped Venezuela's identity, from an oil-rich symbol of prosperity into a cautionary tale about economic dependence and weakened institutions. The story offers lessons far beyond one nation's borders. Over-reliance on a single resource makes economies vulnerable. Concentrating power in a small group weakens accountability. Populist promises can mask structural fragility until it becomes impossible to hide. The confrontation between Maduro and U.S. policy under Trump revealed deeper questions. How far should foreign governments go to pressure another country? Do sanctions encourage change or intensify suffering? And what happens when geopolitical rivalry meets domestic collapse? Today, Venezuela remains in a delicate position. Some sectors show signs of adaptation. Others remain deeply damaged. Millions of citizens continue seeking stability, whether at home or abroad. Recovery, if it comes, will require rebuilding institutions, diversifying the economy, restoring trust, and addressing humanitarian needs. The path forward is uncertain, but the lessons are clear. Venezuela's crisis is not just an economic or political story. It is a human story. Families separated across continents, dreams postponed, generations learning resilience in the face of instability. Understanding how Venezuela reached this point helps explain not only the past, but the vulnerabilities every nation faces when leadership, economics, and power fall dangerously out of balance.